All right. I think I'm live. Back on StreamYard here because I like this microphone. Um, I like the way the audio comes through, but it's too big to use with my phone. So this is the setup today. Hi there. My name is Deanne Battle, and you're hopefully watching the replay of the composite if you're not watching us live. We would prefer that you watched us live, but we take what we can get here. We're scavengers, okay? And so, with that being said, this is the composite. As the title suggests, it's kind of like a leftover slash jambalaya slash casserole of talk shows. Okay, we talk about anything and everything. Um, Now, when I initially started almost 2 years ago, we're almost coming up on our 2 year anniversary. We did a lot of news and a lot of politics. If you've been joining us recently, you'll know that we kind of pulled away from that. And so, hello, we're focusing a little bit more on books and other art forms, interviews with artists, culture more broadly, effluvia, pop culture effluvia. Um, yeah, all of that good stuff. Um, so, it is Monday. My least favorite and most stressful day of the week, but I wanted to go live tonight. So I'm glad that I was able to make it. Now, I did end up working late, but I'm here. I'm here. All right. So, how are you all doing? I hope you're doing well. Let me just check to make sure everything is copacetic over on Instagram. Looks like it. Okay. And there is audio. I don't really like this lighting. This is like, you know what this lighting reminds me of? Like episodes of the X-Files when they would have serial killers and stuff like that. And the guys would like sit in front of the computer and all you would see is the green light. For those of us who remember the big like iMac desktops and whatnot, you'd see that like glowing light on the person's face as you heard the dial up in the background, and they would be doing whatever type of menacing serial killer esque activities that they were up to. So that's what this lighting is giving. We're gonna go with it though. All right. So maybe don't mess with me today because I've got the serial killer lighting going. Um, Now, what are we going to get up to today? Poetry, per usual. Anytime I do not have a guest, I do provide you with words of the lyrical kind because I think it's so necessary in the times that we're living in all times, but in this time in particular, to be able to hear that. Um, a meditation, definitely need a meditation today. Uh, Daylight savings happened last night, or yeah, in the morning or whatever, on the 9th, March 9th. And also one of my least favorite days, losing an hour of sleep. There was a meme that I saw, so of course I had to share. Um, and the meme said, that hour that we lost of sleep, or the hour of time that we lost was the hour that I was going to use to get my life together. And I'm like, yes, exactly. That is what we're going with. All right. So we will do poetry. We'll have a meditation. I want to look at a couple of headlines, not too many. This won't be that long of an episode, and I feel like I say that often, and I usually fail miserably. But however, I'm super tired, so I'm usually super tired as well, but super tired in a very specific way, and a bit hungry. So yeah, there's that. So this will definitely not be a 90-minute episode or anything of that nature. But the sun is still out a little bit, so that is exciting as we approach spring. My birthday is coming up. Actually, I'm not that jazzed about it. I'm trying to get excited for it. Uh, Not because of the year per se, but just more like, so for me, my birthday is like always a check-in for myself. And so I do like my doctor's appointments, and I think about, okay, what goals did you have last year? Did you meet any of those or whatever? And so it just kind of feels like the last year has been a cluster, dot, dot, dot. And so I guess I'm just not looking forward to having to honestly assess myself or reassess myself. But yeah, I do it at least once a year. I do it less frequently than I did when I was younger. When I was younger, I had like 3-year plans, 5-year plans, and then it just, as you know, I just wasn't like accomplishing much. I just kind of started to be like, well, if I don't set a plan, then I can't disappoint myself. So, but I wouldn't suggest that. I would suggest being more organized, but sometimes I try to spare my feelings occasionally. All right. So let's see what we've got going on here for some headlines. Doo, doo, doo. Now I am going to try to experiment with the present function here, um, and just see how that goes. Excuse me, but just 2 to 3 articles max, and then on to other things. Hmm. Not too political, just literally the facts, like what happened. Um, I can have an opinion about it, but not, oh, this person said this or this social media post that. Like actual actions that are being taken, things that are happening. Do, 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 do. All right, so here we are, and let's hit present. Oh, slides and PDFs. Share your screen. Okay. I'm getting slightly better with the tech, if I don't say so myself. Screen sharing works best on a good computer. What are you trying to say, homie? I'm kidding. All right. Let's see. Shall we? Okay. Oh, okay. That's how it looks. Get out of here. Okay. Let's see. Can I remove myself? That is the question. Or can I make this, oh, remove from stage? Oh, that's how that works. Sorry, you guys. I always give you my tech shenanigans in real time, because I'm not great with it. But let's see, add to stage. Oh, now let me get rid of myself and see what happens. Okay, so we're not removing moi, um, for the simple fact that when I remove myself, I remove the audio. and that is no good. Okay, so we need some audio in our lives. Okay, so close that. Um, and now let's look at a couple of articles here. It only took me 10 minutes. I'm just a putter. Um, when I'm teaching, it's like takes me a while to ramp up and get class started. And this is probably, in terms of an enterprise, close to, my little presentations for my students. So thank you for bearing with me. Okay, so as you see, the current presidential administration in the United States continues to flood the zone with news. But I'm only going to choose a couple of things here because, number one, I want to get past distractions and past personalities and really try to get toward solutions. That's important to me. And I say that not as a standard for everybody else, but just a standard for myself. I really don't want to be distracted as much as I can help it. And the current folks running things are hella distracting. Okay. So we can look at that economic article. And yeah, that's what we're going to look at from here. I want to go to at least a semi-reputable news source. Um, no shade, but shade. Okay. Right. Okay. So Dow falls by almost 900 points in market rout after Trump says he won't rule out a recession. Okay. So stocks are down, Bitcoin is down. The Dow and S&P 500 each posted their worst day of the year. It's only March 1st. March, folks. I'm sure it can get worse. I'm just a barrel of laughs today. Um, the NASDAQ posted its biggest single day decline since September 2022. Yeah. Yes. The economy is not going particularly well. And, all of that being said, I wonder what effect this declining economic situation that we're in, what effect it's going to have on governance in terms of people's satisfaction or dissatisfaction with how we're being ruled, essentially. The widespread sell-off was mostly driven by anxiety about the impact of Trump's tariffs. In an interview that aired Sunday, Trump said the U.S. economy would see, quote, a period of transition, end quote, and refused to rule out a recession. All right. So here's the thing. The money folks, the donor class, don't like the chaos that's going on either. But a friend of mine posted something to Facebook that makes sense, even though it was from social media. So it, again, anecdotal, but, something to think about. And the meme said something to the effect of if you are crashing the market, or, if you're having kind of pitfalls in the market because of market chaos, because people don't know what to expect, that that is a good time for billionaires, for example, to come in and then buy stocks at lower prices because they see those, daily dips, before it rises back to a little more of a stable level. And so it's who, who. Goodness. Pardon me. It's basically his post, and he was reposting from someone else. He said that the situation is essentially a money grab, but again, at what cost? Because if you promise people cheap eggs or cheaper eggs, and if you promise people a robust economy, yet all people are getting is market volatility and job layoffs, then I think there's going to be a huge chunk of the population that will have buyer's remorse if this was the team that they chose to play for, so to speak, when it comes to the past election in November. Tesla erases post-election gains. Great. Tesla closed down 15.4% on Monday. Great. After the U.S. presidential election in November, shares of Tesla surged. I wonder why. However, Tesla stock is down almost 45% this year, wiping out gains since November. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, yeah. It's like, oh, they're scared of tariffs, wompty wompty womp. How long this period of investor caution persists depends on how quickly it will take the global trade clouds and the resulting threat of a recession to dissipate, um, said Sam Stovall, chief investment strategist at CFRA Research in a note from Monday. hmm So, all right, let me stop displaying that. So I'm just gonna remove that from the stage. Ooh, see, I did that like a little quick. Okay. Um. So here's the thing. It's just interesting to me that in that article the focus is, surprise, surprise, at the investor level, but at the consumer level, there is a definite shitstorm coming because you know again, anecdotally, but why can't I pronounce that word today? Anecdotally, the folks that I speak with, we talk about, oh, Netflix went up yet again, Hulu went up yet again, this monthly bill went up yet again, and it's just kind of like you get to the point where you can't afford, things that are considered basic entertainment, or you can't afford, people I know with cars, like let's say hypothetically you're not filling up your tank or things like that because money's getting scarce, and it's just when there are these squeezes from the top, I just wonder how they never or why they never factor in the suffering of the consumer, because the United States is a consumer economy. So at the end of the day, if you are a donor, let's say to the current administration, and you're finagling some stuff behind the scenes, so oh, we're giving the media a super chaotic news cycle, and that's having a negative effect on markets, but we buy the dip, and so it's like, yeah, you can buy the dip, but at the end of the day, if shareholders are expecting quarterly yields and nobody's buying shit, then I mean, it's just, I'm not an economist. I have no business acumen to speak of or economic training, but that just seems like you're going to shoot yourself in the foot eventually. And I know that even though we have more billionaires and millionaires than we ever have had, I do know that the entire world is over leveraged and these profit margins are very narrow. And as people protest more about that in the future, I'm privy to certain pockets where people are doing economic boycotts, I would argue that the economic boycotts that have been going viral and that people have been spreading around, I don't think it goes far enough. Like, again, these profit margins are very narrow. Okay, so starve the beast. Not just, oh, one day here or one day there or one week here. You, let's see sustained 2 quarters of lower profits, 3 quarters of lower profits to really see what happens. So the appropriate parties feel the appropriate pain and make the necessary changes. And that takes discipline, and discipline is very hard. Um, so it's easy for me to say, do more disciplined economic boycotts, because at the end of the day, I mean, my dollars, it doesn't really have, well, my dollar, when I have a dollar, it doesn't go very far. It's usually just bills, maybe a couple of incidentals, and then food, and then food for my dog too, and then that's it. But all of that being said, if I was the sort of person that I was always like shopping at Walmart and Target and things like that, then I would be looking to do 2 quarters, 3 quarters of a boycott at least. So, 6 to 9 months, not just one day here, one day there. Like, really make them feel some pain. Like, get them to the point where they have to lay off some executives. It shouldn't be just regular people that are getting laid off. Just it's. I remember when I was a kid, and then I would get a new toy. Um, I would be pretty selfish with it and just be like, oh, it's new. Like, just want to take it out of the box, and I'm just the only one to play with it. And, certain toys, if it's just to your preference as a kid, like the other kids are just going to be like, not interested. But for a majority of the toys that I had, my sister would want to play with it and my brother would want to play with it. And so, as kids do, sometimes you're like, no, it's my turn. It's my turn. And I just remember on a couple of occasions, my mom saying she would grab it and then she would, put it in the top of the closet or lock it away somewhere. And she would be like, okay, now nobody can have it, or, or I'm going to throw it away. So you need to decide, are you going to learn to share and compromise, or is it going to get taken away? And that's how I feel about our current ruling class. Like, you need to learn how to share, or this shit goes away for everyone. And is that realistic? No, but it makes the petty in me. It feeds my petty spirit, and it's like, vitamin C for my pettiness. So I like to hold that thought dear. That, okay, well, if I can't thrive and prosper, you can't either, and that's just how it will be. But I that perspective always underestimates greed and evil. I have a tendency to do that. So I'm sure they'll find a way to make me pay somehow. But let's focus on something else, okay? I'm going to look for just one more article here to talk about. Excuse me. Excuse me. Not feeling the best, a little congested, so sorry to be gross. Um, Measles outbreaks. That sounds like a don't threaten me with a good time. Discussing measles outbreaks. All right. Excuse me. Okay. Ukraine updates. Wow. You all, it's been almost 5 years. Or has it, wait, today's the 10th? When was lockdown? Hold on a second. Lockdown, let me look that up. Lockdown. It started, so at the time when, COVID first happened or it became a thing, um, I was living in Connecticut and I believe, yeah, it says March 11th. Oh, wow. Tomorrow's the anniversary. I cannot believe, folks, that 5 years have passed. That's crazy. All right, so let's look at a COVID article, right? Again, don't threaten us with a good time. Let's party. Let's see. Timeline of COVID pandemic. Sorry, folks. March. Is 9. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was March 11th. That's so nuts. Okay. So, I actually went to Wikipedia to pull up the timeline, folks. And then, like I said, I'm just going to pull up one more article here. Five years. Hmm. Sorry for the silence here. If I had have gotten off work a little bit earlier, I would have been able to tee these articles up. Okay, let's go with Yahoo. That is, I mean, in my opinion, a somewhat neutral source. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, hold on. Oh, it's not letting me click. Sorry. All right. So you should be able to see that. Okay. So this is the Wikipedia page for, just to show you the top of it in case you're curious. Um, Timeline of the COVID-19 pandemic in the United States. Okay. So I was in this little area here. Sorry. I know watching me scroll was exciting. Okay. All right. Connecticut. Several towns in Connecticut announced schools will close for at least 2 weeks beginning March 12th, including New Canaan, where the state's third case was confirmed. Okay, so let me uh, chat about that a little bit. So here's the thing. I was teaching, and I think I've probably told this story once, at least once. I was teaching in Connecticut. I was teaching in a boarding school, and I remember I had gone to Madrid at the time with my best friend at the time. We had gone to Madrid in 2018, in that fall, and she was kind of scouring the web for cheap tickets to go back to Europe. She wanted to go. Where did she want to go? I think she wanted to go to Sweden that spring or something like that, and she was looking for tickets. And at the time, I wasn't as bad off financially as I am now, but excuse me. And so in December of 2019, we were talking about, possibly traveling and, staying in an Airbnb or something like that. And, she's into photography and I'm into writing. And so the plan was, oh, okay, well, if we can finagle some sort of trip. She had been corresponding with a couple of artists there. So the idea was is that, oh, we could go and you could meet this novelist, I could meet this photographer, and we could just see what we can see. And so we were planning this trip roughly, kind of around the edges. And at the time, there is a guy, his name's Chris Martinson, and he has a podcast called Peak Prosperity. And I had run across his page, a few times before for economic news, but he was doing more and more posts, and you could tell he was kind of getting really agitated that, like, oh, hey, there's some shit going down, right? And so, hold on a sec here. I just want to, okay. How do I want to make this part smaller. Okay. Sorry. All right. Well, I couldn't make it smaller. We'll go back to it. But he was doing a lot of posts, really talking about some, mystery flu, and I think he first did an emergency post that late November after Thanksgiving or December, and I don't agree with his politics, but his analysis is very strong, and I tend to agree with a lot of his observations in that regard, in terms of the way he tracks news, which is important to me. Like, what is this person's ability to spot the habits and patterns of our news cycle? And so I found his information to be substantial and valid. So he did this emergency post about COVID. At that time, it wasn't called COVID. Um, it was just kind of some illness that people are talking about, that possibly started in Wuhan, in China. And so he was doing these posts, and he was really ringing the alarm bells. And so I sent it to my friend and I said, hey, you know, I don't like to be alarmist, or unleash my inner hypochondriac on the world, because there is an inner hypochondriac um, deep inside. And so I usually keep her tucked away. But when he did that post, it was just something about what he said. I'll actually, excuse me, go back to his archives and just post it morbidly as like a COVID anniversary post. Excuse me. I, I'm talking about COVID anniversary as I'm over here coughing. I don't think I've had it yet. Um, Now, there was one time in 2023 where I was just sick for 6 weeks, and I kept testing, and I was like, there's no way I definitely have COVID. And then they were like, oh no, it's just a really bad case of the flu. But um, sorry to get off track. But he did this post, and it was just his something about his focus and his intent as he was speaking. And I said to myself, wow, this is like really, really serious. And so my friend and I were planning this trip, and I sent her that post, and I remember saying, I said, homie, I don't think we're going anywhere. And she watched the post and immediately, I'm sorry, she watched the video. And immediately after she was done with the video, she was like, oh, yeah, we're not going anywhere. And, sure enough, uh, that was in, I want to say, late January when we were having that exchange. And then about 5 weeks later, or, something in that realm, a month to 5 weeks later, we had a lockdown. And now I had thrown my back out. I was trying to like really get healthier, and I had my weight down. And I'm like, ooh, I'm like trying to get skinny here. So I need to get toned. And I was doing CrossFit, and I totally murdered my back. And I was in physical therapy until the day right before lockdown. That was my last physical therapy session. So it wasn't like my life was like super out there and mobile before that, because, I was walking with a cane and doing acupuncture and then going to physical therapy like 3 times a week. So it was pretty intense, because like the right side of my body, like my right leg was useless. Like it just hurt to like breathe, move, do anything full body. And it hurt, from my right side, from that lower back area around your hip all the way down. And it was just very, very hard to get around. And I was still working full time, wasn't able to take time off, wasn't allowed to take time off. Okay. And it was a really miserable time. And so when I think about lockdown, and when I think about the ways in which my life changed, it changed my life forever. Um, I think people who have long COVID, or people who've lost someone to COVID, I had a colleague, I think her grandmother died of COVID, not too long after lockdown started. Excuse me. And so, you know, what I experienced was nowhere on par with that. I don't want to oversell it, but um, the ways in which, like, I see myself as a human being moving through this world completely changed, because, at the end of the day, you know, who did I live with? No one. Who did I answer to? No one. Work is a different thing, but just, I didn't, when you're not able to leave the house, the noise that you use to crowd your existence, that crowd your head, it just didn't exist for me. And so I really just had to do a lot of self assessing, and, just come to a lot of realities, which, were just like, oh, wow, this is not the life that I wanted to be leading. I'm not the person that I want to be. I haven't matured in the ways that I want to. And so I think the first 6 months of it, we're just getting used to the stillness of lockdown. And then past the first 6 months, that is when the brutal self assessments really started to emerge. And there were ebbs and flows to it. Like, I'd have days where I was just like, oh, okay, well, you know, you haven't accomplished X, or you haven't done Y, you haven't, started a family, you haven't met this person, you haven't done that. And, or then, some days in which where I was like grateful that I was on my own because, again, looking at colleagues in a boarding school environment and the ways in which people spoke about their families, I'm like, wow, you really don't like your husband. You really don't like your children, or your children really don't like you. I remember there was a video of Kelly Ripa becoming very emotional and just saying something to the effect that she felt like her kids didn't like her. And so COVID kind of brings that out of you, in a lockdown setting where you can't, like, if you're going to hide from the truth, where are you going to go? Everybody's inside. And so that's primarily what I think of in terms of lockdown and the ways in which it's changed me. Um, I'm full of less bravado, if I even have any left. There's less of it there. There's just like, you know, there's a Redman song, I Be That. So it's just like, oh, you suck. I be that. Like, it's just like, what am I gonna do? Like, this is, the journey that I'm on. Um, and I can course correct, but I'm never going to be perfect, and I can't change what has been, you know? And that can often be like a very somber thing to sit with. And I wasn't really doing that emotional work, that excavation. If you watched our last episode, we had an interview with Amit Shah, and his latest collection of essays, revisiting the minds. He really talks about like excavating memory, and really trying to look at it frankly. And I guess on a micro level, that's what lockdown did for me. I was always able to, um, oh, go say hi to a friend, or, when I was at the boarding school, like, oh, if I'm having a bad day, or if, a lesson didn't go the way that I wanted it to, just go to the dining hall and like talk to a friend, or because I have several friends that live in Connecticut. Like, oh, we were able to have brunch, and we had such lovely brunches in 2019, such lovely brunches in 2018 and 2019. But I wasn't able to fill my head and my spirit with those types of distractions. Which were, lovely and necessary, but I just had to just say, time is passing, and I'm not the woman that I want to be. I'm not the artist that I want to be. And, well, what does that mean? And, yeah, there were some hard days during lockdown. But again, I think on the other side of it, not that the pandemic is over, but that, that very isolating level of, okay, this thing, initially for the first bit of it, like, there wasn't the vaccine yet, right? It was like, okay, this thing might kill you. You need to stay in the house. And, there's so many people that I love in my life that have pre-existing conditions where I didn't want to be the person that gave them COVID. And so, just trying to be careful and mindful around their health. And so, I would try to do things to the letter. Yes, I was one of those people that was bleaching, spray of water and bleach, like a mixture, on the outside of my grocery bag deliveries, and just being like, I am contributing to the community, trying to stay healthy. I did my mask. I did the vaccines, and I did the things. And yeah, I mean, I don't think I have too many more observations about lockdown. Other than that, it was a very, in a time when the attention economy is so scarce and you just have so many different things, your phone, streaming programs, your computer, and work and school and commuting, and the economy trying to make your dollar stretch further. Um, our deteriorating health as a culture because the food we eat is shit. And well, how do you maintain your health, or whether it's your spiritual, emotional, mental, physical health? How do you maintain your health? How do you maintain the integrity of who you are in these conditions, in this onslaught of pandemics? Because it's not just the actual COVID disease. I think we are having hate pandemics and war pandemics and greed pandemics, and all of these negative emotions and impulses are metastasizing all at once. So how do you really maintain the integrity of who you are in the here and now in this particular skin suit? And um, I have to say that lockdown required that I slow down and look at things more frankly. Um, so that's the main thing that I got out of it, of that period of time. I was also like, part of me is slightly nostalgic. I would say like 10 to 15%, but because I had a nice apartment, y'all. For a couple of years there, I had a nice apartment. I lived in a gated community. I had a garage or whatever not, but it's everything has its price, right? Because it was very lonely. I was in an area where it just wasn't very receptive to me or like my personality or my ideas. I really didn't have any friends. And so all I really had was the material, was the roof over my head and, you know, um, the, accoutrements to keep me satisfied that, oh, I'm living well. But it's not really all about that. It's, if you can have a sense of stability and security in your material circumstances, then that's wonderful. Hats off to you. But I feel like I had that um, at a big cost because even fast forwarding to now in 2025, and I've mentioned this several times, I feel like I've lost my villages. I didn't have like one particular village per se, but I just would I was like my favorite childhood bedtime story that my dad used to read me, the Bremen Town Musicians. And what I used to love is that they used to just kind of go around with their friends to the different towns and play their music. And so that's how I saw, subconsciously in my mind. I was like, oh, people always say find your tribe or find your village. And I know some people feel like the language of saying that is problematic, and I get it, but I don't have a better way to phrase it now. But for me, I always saw it as, oh, I can go around to several different villages. And then, oh, if this village is busy or I'm tired of this village, I'll go to another one. And then COVID happened and it's just said, no, bitch, you're not going to any village. You are your village. So what are you going to do with that? How are you going to populate that village? Um, you know who's the blacksmith in that village? Who's the what are some old-timey old school jobs? Anybody into Renaissance fairs? Help me out here. Who's the farmer in that village? Who's the seamstress? Or you know I don't know what you call a male seamster. Okay. English teachers are winning today. But so I realized I had to be that for myself, and I had never had that, because anytime that I felt like, dissatisfied, with myself or with my circumstances, or just, try to go somewhere else and see what I could see and treat it like an adventure or try to meet new people. And then that wasn't happening. And so what I find about the COVID era, which, I believe we're still living in, is that um, that part hasn't recovered. I'm trying to make more of an effort to speak to people and to let them know that they're important to me. But the the disconnected timeline of it all, the feeling of it, I don't think that that's changed. And so, how do the Brementown musicians perform when there's no village to go to? Um, that's part of what I'm left with. That this pandemic has ultimately required me to rewire the way that I relate to myself. And because I've changed the way that I relate to myself, or because I'm attempting to change the way that I relate to myself, I'm realizing that I can't visit the same villages. I have to build my own. And it's a struggle. So, shout out, and, my thoughts and prayers and uh, supports and cheers and condolences, all of the above, to anyone that is currently in process of trying to formulate your own village. It's tough. All right. So let me now go here to an article from Yahoo News. Okay, present. And again, just like to point out, so I was like, oh, I'll only be on here for 30 minutes. Almost 53 minutes in. Okay. Now, please ignore the ads at the top, because that is like obnoxiously large. Okay. Yeah, stop seeing this ad. Seen multiple times. Ad covered content. Yeah, how about that? Okay. Jesus. I know people want to make their margins and their revenue, but like, come on, dude. Oops. All right, so I got rid of my face for a little bit here. Hopefully, you can see the article a little bit better. Okay, but from Yahoo News, 5 years after the pandemic started, COVID-19 is still around. Masks, not so much. Has your COVID era mask been a constant companion, or is it collecting dust? So I'll tell y'all today, I wore a mask today because I am not feeling great. And I just try to be mindful that I'm not randomly coughing on people. How about that? And so it's now, do I have COVID? I mean, like I said, I don't think I've gotten it thus far. So probably not. But uh, still, I mean, I think masking when you're feeling unwell, it just seems like, a polite thing to do, a helpful thing to do. Excuse me. Now, and I've probably mentioned this before as well, I was masking regularly um, until, I want to say, April or May of 2023. So I masked consistently for 3 years. And then, like I said, I mask situationally, um, since April or May 2023, and which is not great, to be honest. I mean, I should still be wearing my mask all the time, but it's been really hard, to be honest, to teach with the mask on. Like when I was at private schools and I would mask, parents would like actively complain to my face, like, "Oh, my child says that they can't hear what you're saying because you have your mask on." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" But I found that, and even today, I find that when I have it on, I'm like kind of shouting over the mask, and then I just blow my voice out, and it's just I just don't have the energy for that right now. So what I'll do is I'll mask, let's say 2 to 3 days in a row, and then that third day or that fourth day, I can't, because if I do, it's just like I wouldn't be able to speak. Even now my voice is a bit hoarse because I had, well, like I said, I'm not feeling well, but then I had the mask on, and it's just a challenge for me personally to have that every day. But um, back to the article here. Has your COVID era mask been a constant companion, or is it collecting dust? Americans' relationship with masking has been fraught and politicized since the beginning of the pandemic, a time when many balked at mandates to wear them, while others wouldn't leave their home without that level of protection. 5 years on, um, have we moved closer to a happy compromise? Mask requirements have largely ceased, and deciding whether to wear one is up to the individual. And some people do make that choice, particularly during cold and flu season, though polling suggests that masks are both less commonplace and a bit less polarizing these days. Here's how we got here and what to know about the current state of masking in the US. Mask culture has actually been around for a while, not in the US. And this is something that I think is important because I remember, again, right before lockdown happened, like the week before, I some of my advisees, or were international students, and they were just like, "Oh, I don't get why it's like such a big deal to wear a mask," because they were saying that where they were from, you know um, different parts of Asia, they just said, "Yeah, if everybody's getting sick, then we just wear our masks, and that just helps the disease from to stop spreading." They just really couldn't understand why it was such a controversial issue. And I was like, good for you. That totally makes sense. Because people, I don't know if you've noticed, people are gross. People don't wash their hands. They cough into their hands. They cough into the open air. I went to the Museum of Modern Art, and as I was coming down a staircase, a woman coughed directly into my face, and then I was sick for the rest of December. So I'm not saying that her germs were the magic germs that got me sick, because it was pretty crowded that day and there were a lot of magical germs floating around. But I think if I had to narrow it down to the top two or three candidates, I would definitely put that heifer in the top two or three. Okay. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing here just because I am like rambling on. But here in the US, we don't have that same type of social consciousness, Wool says. We are more likely to wear masks to avoid infection rather than to prevent forward transmission of germs to others. Okay, so let's pause there a bit. Okay, that's such a great point. I'm going to read that one more time. But here in the US, we don't have that same type of social consciousness, Wall says. We are more likely to wear masks to avoid infection rather than to prevent forward transmission of a germ to others. So, that last part here, prevent forward transmission of a germ to others, and social consciousness, you know what folks call that now? They call that woke. So, if I don't want people to die because I'm sick, there's a problem with that shit. That's how degenerate of a society we're living in right now. I don't even think that that's a correct grammatical formulation, but hopefully you get what I'm trying to say. Um, Anything where you're considering someone outside of yourself now is considered to be some type of liberal conspiracy or agenda. That's disgusting. Who needs a level of social consciousness just to say, oh, hey, I just don't want to be the nasty mofo that is passing around a bunch of disease? People just don't care about each other. And it might have always been that way. I'm sure it's always been that way. But just the naked aggression of it. I am so invested in my quote unquote freedom and my mobility and my personal agenda to do whatever the fuck that I want, that I can't be bothered to do something. It's just the bar is so low. I can't be bothered to do anything that has a positive effect or a positive, a contribution to our public health crises. That's just so dirty. Um, okay, so 5 years later, are Americans still masking? You know the answer to that. Hell no. Still, recent polling from the Pew Research Center reveals that while mask wearers are still out there, they are few and far between, and their numbers have plummeted since the beginning of the pandemic. According to Pew, 80% of Americans say they rarely or never wear a mask in stores or businesses. I would say I'm not rarely, I would say I'm a moderate mask wearer, between moderate and occasional in that area. So I put on a mask on average a few times a month. So yeah, I would consider that like moderate or occasional. And again, that's not great because from a public health standpoint, you have to be disciplined about it in order to prevent um, infections from milling around. But it's better than nothing. Hold on, I just wanted to turn off the space heater. It's a little warm in here. Just a sec. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be masking tomorrow. Um, According to Pew, 80% of Americans say they rarely or never wear a mask in stores or business. 4 years ago, those numbers were reversed, with 88% of Americans saying they had worn a mask or a face covering in stores all or most of the time in the past month. That, I'm sorry, that's a bullshit number. People are lying because um, during the bulk of the pandemic, lockdown wise, so to speak, I was living in Arkansas, and I can tell you, most of those folks were not masking. So I don't know, maybe that 88%, maybe there were certain states where people were so masked that it overcompensates for where I was living. But people would, I saw several arguments where people would throw a fit and be like, I'm not putting on no fucking mask and da 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 da, and just like, almost like rabid about it, almost feral about it. And so I know for a fact, no, that number is it's a little high. I don't think 88% of people were masking 4 years ago. And while most Americans, 74%, say they think it's extremely or very important for people who are sick to avoid contact with vulnerable people, they're less enthusiastic about taking action to protect others. 43% of Americans feel it's extremely or very important to wear a mask in a crowded settings, when you have cold-like symptoms. In fact, Pew found that masks are so underutilized that even the divide between Republicans and Democrats has narrowed. But so here's the thing though, but that's like not necessarily a bad thing, because I thought it was super weird how people were turning the mask into this like identity thing, um, of who you are, or how it was associated with political parties. For me, like, public health should be outside of that. So if the gap has narrowed, I think that part of me thinks that's a good thing. Um, Once highly politicized, frequent mask wearing has now almost equally been discarded by both parties, with just 6% of Democrats and 2% of Republicans saying they frequently wore one in the past month. The partisan differences were less stark, however, when asked if they had worn a mask at all recently, with 76% of Republicans and 47% of Democrats saying they had never masked up in the past month. Hmm. Okay. All right. So that's all we'll read from that. And I'll post a link to the article. But happy COVID anniversary, y'all. Okay. So let's do that. Stop sharing my screen. Okay. So here's the deal. I'm more than an hour in, remarkably, considering I had very little to no plan, and and I wanted to do a meditation. So I think we're out of meditation time. But guess what? I'm broadcasting 2 more times this week. So you will see the likes of me very soon, right here. Um, with that being said, I'm going to wrap up this episode with a couple of poems. So let's see what the poems of the day are. Like the soup of the day. Let's see what's on offer. Okay. So this poem is called Fragments of Light by Jalen, Skye, Smallcanyon. Fragments of Light. 1. Blue luster radiates under divine darkness's blanket. Golden light glares from brightened hallways, seeping through the threshold as shadows walk past and eyelids close tighter. Fragments of broken glass glisten while Spider-Woman spins her crystalline webs. Soft knocks at the door, and Shinali rouses me from a deep slumber entwined in the ancestral plane. 2. A scuffed metal head gleams under Johanna eye, while fingers clutch the plastic yellow handle, tight as a guarded secret. The old dirty axe rises to strike wood, breath after breath. Ore bites into pine stumps. Sweat gathers on the back, soaking an oversized sweater. 3. Shabitalu gazes into many twinkling eyes of quartz as cannon walls unveil hues of crimson and burnt orange. Heavy breaths linger, moistening rugged stones. Above, clouds drape the sky, where bright blue dissipates behind dark clouds and rain beads along brows. Stand on rocky edges as flooding waters roar. Wait for the squall's wrath to carry guilt's weight. 4. A flash of light, a flash of white, lightning threads the nightosphere as thunder breathes heavy like animal hide humming from drums, pounding through the midnight hour. Drizzles of male rain cascade like dark strands, unraveling from a seal, vivid droplets in night's cover, brushstrokes revealing sheen. Rain taps rhythmically on the window as eyelids close. Okay. So this is my first exposure to this poet, and it's from Poetry Magazine, the March 2025 issue. So if you want to see this poem for yourself, it's called Fragments of Light. I think it would be much cooler to hear Jalen, Skye, Canyon read it, because um, I, am not doing the words that are not in English justice, because I'm not 100% sure which language that is. So if you want to hear it authentically, you can hear the poet themselves read it. Okay. So that was Fragments of Light. And then our second poem, and our last bit of business this evening, we're going to wrap up with Freligh. Freligh. Sarah Freligh. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now that looks like, I guess it is in English. Maybe she's of German heritage. Not sure, but that's what the spelling looks like to me of the little bit I know of German. So Sarah Freligh, and it's called "In This Poem We Will Not Glorify Sunrise." In this poem we will not glorify sunrise, nor admire the apples that blossom during a February heat wave, only to wilt and die in a mid-May freeze. Doom, such a fickle bitch. She's snow spilling into Reno, where plane loads of people sick of winter have gone to gamble in tank tops and shorts. Here it's 73 degrees, warm enough to sunbathe on a Lake Ontario beach. Overhead, a jet pirouettes toward the airport, fluttering white scarves of vapor, contrails kissing cousins to entrails. Mine are glistening in pink as a sunrise, except for one rotten spot. That's something to watch in the future. How it always starts for the apple. Wow. Those last two lines again. Mine are glistening in pink as a sunrise, except for one rotten spot. That's something to watch in the future. How it always starts for the apple. Right? I like that. I like how that poem ended. There's always, what is it? One rotten apple spoils the bunch. But you wait. You wait until the spoiling happens. And I think that poem is questioning that wait. It's also, ushering in spring, which, daylight savings, losing that hour, it ushers in spring. So even though I can't stand daylight savings time because I lose the sleep, I do love the arrival of spring. Okay, so that has been, this has been The Composite, Season 5, Episode 8. I'm still Deanne Battle, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. We're going to broadcast again on Wednesday, most likely at 5 p.m. But if I have some mishigas go down, I will make the necessary adjustments. Okay? Take care.